The AOKs, the happy owners of KOKs. We're not just family but friends. Have a laugh, we have some fun, just serious off, and when we're done,
Prepare for bed? Yeah.
and when we're done, do it all over again. KOKs, the happy owners of KOKs. We're not just family but friends. KOKs, the happy owners of Kent.
Hi guys, it's us, the Abionas of Kent, better known as the AOKs. And today we just want to talk as adults, especially since we heard about the tragic passing of the YouTube star Nicole Tia. And we looked at the video, and some things brought back memories for myself. And then because my husband is a doctor, then we'll also kind of get his perspective on things, although he's always keen to tell us that his specialty is
pediatrics and not obstetrics.
yes, so he would weigh in as best as he can. And also because Shinova is almost the age of Nicole, not almost, like
a few years. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, just to have a conversation around it. So just kicking things off, how did you all feel just looking at her, just the excitement of her being pregnant and stuff? I don't know who wants to go first.
I think it's hard to watch. Like I'm the type of person, I like to see videos of when people find out they're pregnant or they've struggled to become pregnant and they're pregnant, and watching that journey. So watching the video, knowing what sadly happened, I think it was hard to watch, but also seeing her excitement and joy for this new life that was growing inside of her was also a beautiful thing. I think one thing that stood out to me in the video that we watched, where she was talking about different symptoms, different symptoms that she's had through her pregnancy, is that the things that she was saying sounds like things that I've heard loads of women say that they go through with pregnancy. So yeah.
I think it's very, very difficult to watch, having known about the outcome. I can only imagine how tough it must be, for her partner to see that. But what came across in her video is sort of the vibrance and the excitement. And I suppose we'll go through some of the sort of other symptoms that kind of can be quite popular or quite common in women in pregnancy. But it was quite a difficult watch, I felt.
Yeah. I mean, from the time I found out the news, I was just so heartbroken, because pregnancy, people would tell you pregnancy is literally a kind of 50-50 thing. Like, you don't know if you'd make it on the other side. But yet, because we hear all the positive stories, we just literally assume and wish and pray that all pregnancies go that way. And sadly, not all pregnancies do. I was 23 when I had Shinova, so I remember what it was like to be pregnant at that time, and just hearing her talk about the worst parts of her pregnancy brought back memories of when I was pregnant with you, and just how the shortness of breath. I remember there was a time I couldn't laugh. Like, if you laugh, I was in so much pain. You're literally crying if you want to laugh. I couldn't cough. And because of those things, you're scared. But every time you go to the midwife and you're reassured that everything is all right, they could tell you that, but in your heart of hearts, at that time, you think about the negative stories you hear, and you're hoping that you are not someone that ends up being one of those people. But it's very, it's a scary time. I remember it being scary. And a funny thing happened with that was a friend told me about, she said, there's this retired midwife that I could go to that she went to when she had a problem. And so when I got there, the first thing the lady said to me is, I'm not the healer, Jesus is the healer. And I was like, what kind of midwife is it? I was so scared because then she started telling me about rubbing and this, and I was like, Jesus, what have I brought myself into here? But and then she told me about tying something on myself and not doing certain things for days. I mean, for me, luckily, because I went back to my to see the doctor because I was living in Trinidad at the time. And of course, they kept reassuring you, don't worry, it will pass, everything will get better. This is one of the things that doctors say, that you have to explain what it really means. Keep an eye on it. And if anything gets worse, let me know. And you're thinking, it's worse already. Like, what is worsera? What is that? There is no worsera for me because you just feel so bad. So what does that mean?
Well, I mean, just to come back to an earlier point that you made, it's important to stress that for the majority of pregnancy, there is a positive outcome. And it's tragically that there are the pregnancy that doesn't go the desired way, but they're still they're not the common, not the run of the mill, and that's why it's so tragic, because we would have thought that in this day and age, 2020, these
That's
things
true.
shouldn't happen, particularly for someone with at such a young age. But coming back,
Who was also active. She was
yes,
very
with no underlying
Issues,
sort of issues. So that's what makes it really particularly painful. I mean, we don't know the exact circumstances and sort of post-mortem and that kind of thing. But coming back to the point that you were making about what doctors, we say quite a lot, keep an eye on it. And I suppose it's to the fact that they would have done certain clinical tests, listening to the baby, maybe even doing ultrasound, and if they feel reassured by that, and also sort of for the mother to be, they would have done blood pressure, checked the urine, make sure that there is no sort of proteins, things that can be early indicators of something systemically wrong with the mother. So those initial clinical tests will be done. But if, for example, pick a symptom like not being able to breathe properly or being short of breath, checking the oxygen level, something called oxygen saturation monitor, checking blood pressure and all those kind of things. If they're still reassured by that, then that's when they would say, keep an eye on it. And really the kind of symptoms getting worse is if you cannot walk under your own steam, or if any of those values that they found are unusual, then
But the thing is, you're telling them that you're feeling like that, and then sometimes they ask you on a scale of 1 to 10, how is this, how is that? And sometimes, like, you don't even know what to base your scale of 1 to 10 on. So the way you feel, you might say 8, but you're guessing 10, but you're guessing. And the thing is, your pain can be horrible. And I know for myself, I don't know if it's as a black woman, a Caribbean woman, or what, I could take a lot of pain. So if they ask me, if I tell them that I'm at an 8 or something like that, I'm just trying to not make it sound like I'm exaggerating, but it could be really bad. Yeah, and I've had experience. I mean, this isn't with pregnancy, but when I was going through chemo, for example, and I wanted to pass urine and couldn't, and I was saying to them, I was in so much pain, crying for hours, and they just think that literally I knew the doctor felt that I was wasting her time, and some of the other patients were calling, saying, why aren't you coming to check on the woman, because it was from like after 8 when you left the morning until 11, and then by the time I passed the urine, it's over 2 liters of urine. I mean, so those things make you scared to just believe when you hear keep an eye on it, because you're thinking, I was telling you that it was bad. And so after that, I'm still trying not to cry, but I'm looking at them, I don't know. It's like I am trying to cover up for you now, so it's not because you just feel like everybody has been good to you. It's because sometimes you had like negative experience, and so you're afraid to just take everything that they're telling you.
I think like from watching her story, and even from what you were just saying now, Mum, that I I think as young people we are not told that the reality of pregnancy fully. Like a lot of times when people become pregnant, it's when there's so much research done, like what do I do now? If you have family around you supporting you, then ask them questions of like does this happen, does that happen? But really I think there should be more education around that sort of area. Without, I mean, I don't know, it's kind of because you're like, how much education is too much education? But at the same time, just for people to understand that like what is seen as normal, what is not seen as normal, have open conversations about it. And I think this even like extends outwardly to, like, for example, with breastfeeding and women breastfeeding in public and things being like more hidden as well, and having conversations about like what is normal in breastfeeding, what do you look out for that isn't normal, because a lot of the time it's a hidden thing because people are doing it kind of privately, hiding it. You don't even know what is
and even as you say, if you go into breastfeeding, by the time you give birth and a child latch onto your breast the wrong way, like you did to me,
sorry,
it pains. It like seriously, you've just given birth to this child and you want to say, oh, the joy, and then your boobs are paining so much, you're like and I literally remember mommy there like helping to hold my hand up to make sure that I don't drop the child when when you start. Then your boobs are bleeding a little bit sometimes, and so at least in the UK, what I found is that they were taking more time to show you how to make sure that the child latch onto the breast. But I didn't get that in Trinidad. I don't know if it's like that now, but it wasn't like that. It was like, well, good luck. Hope you have a nipple when you're done.
I mean, it's so important to have, you know, the midwife and even there's a limit to, in a way, what can be taught before you actually start to experience it. But I get the point that, you know, there's a lot that you can do in certain lessons that you have later on in secondary education and that kind of thing. But a lot is really put on the midwives who, when they're good, they're really good, and they would really walk you through the various stages. And it is important. At the end of the day, you have to have clinicians and practitioners that are responsive to the patient and to the client in a way that, you know, keeps them reassured that they are listening to what is being said, so that, you know, things are not missed. I mean, we're always taught, and in my field of pediatrics, we're always taught to respect what the parents are saying, because they are the experts on their child. You know, no matter how much I know about a particular condition, the manifestation of that condition, you know, is through the experience of the parents. And so I have to sort of respect what they are saying and take them seriously. So if they say, this isn't how, you know, this is not how this child is, despite what all the numbers may be telling me, I have to still, you know, keep that in mind and have what we call a high index of suspicion. Don't just be reassured by just the numbers. You have to sort of keep coming, keep checking, and keep listening.
I was just thinking as well, actually, as you're coming to the end, that actually this brings up a deeper conversation as well of when women say that they don't want to have children naturally, or if they've had children naturally and they've decided, actually, I don't want to go, I don't want to say like down the natural route, but like I want to adopt now, or that the first time I was pregnant, my body, like the way my body changed, the way I felt, it didn't feel comfortable. Like removing the stigma around people adopting, people having surrogates, like those types of conversations as well, because there are people who are like, like, how can you not want to go through it again? And as you were saying, everyone's pregnancy is very different, and their experience is very different. So someone saying, actually, I don't want to go through this again, I want to go and look down another route, there's nothing wrong with that. And we don't know what, if they say they were in pain or it's difficult, we don't know what that felt like. The only person who will know what that felt like is the mother. In the situation.
It made me think about somebody like Kim Kardashian. For her to decide, based on what the doctors are saying, she wants more children, but she decided, I'm not going to be the one to bear the children. She knew what society would say about her, but she had to make the decision for her own body. Can you imagine if she had decided to push just to please people, go get pregnant, and then something goes terribly wrong? So as you're rightfully saying, you have to know, listen to the advice that's being given and make decisions, not to please people, but to please you. Another point, based on what Soji was saying, I was thinking about doctors, nurses, midwives. Even though people have different personalities, some are more grumpy than others, they don't get into the profession, most of them. Almost every one of them. They don't get in for a negative reason. They get in because they really want to help lives. And nobody wants this kind of outcome at the end for any mother. They want you to be able to go, you're expecting that the person will go home with their child and, you understand, have a good life. I mean, some with midwives, find it really difficult, even when they have to come and help you after, because you had C-section and in so much pain. You could see that they're empathizing with you so much, and they're sorry that you had to go through that. So I don't know, any final words that you want to say just based on
Not specifically. I just think that it was good that we've had this conversation today, from different perspectives as well. And I think that people need to have more of these open conversations as well, in different settings, in the education setting, at home, with the family, and openly share your experiences as well. If you have gone through a pregnancy, or even if it's not like a pregnancy in terms of you carried the child, if it's you had a surrogate, if you adopted, like all of the different perspectives, particularly people from Afro-Caribbean backgrounds, like we really need to have more open conversations about these.
I think for me it's sort of extending our condolences really to the family of Nicole Thea, because it's very rare for a young person to have a what's been reported as a massive heart attack, especially when they don't have a underlying condition, and it is still quite rare. I wouldn't say it doesn't happen, but for tragedies to happen, at childbirth, childbirth is still it is quite there's a lot of things that could go wrong, but they don't go wrong as often as they used to in the past. But it's for the family, I imagine it's a very, very tough time right now, particularly her partner and perhaps immediate family and parents, and so our condolences go out to them. I want to echo the same thing as Soji has said. Our deepest condolences to her mom, the rest of her loved ones, but in particular to her partner. This, I cannot even imagine what you're going through. You have lost the both of them, all the plans, your dreams, your hopes, the things that you're looking forward to, the things that you said openly you were looking forward to doing with your son and to doing as a family. This is heartfelt sympathy to you. And then to those who are viewing this video, just to encourage you as a young woman to start the conversations and questions that you have about things like these. Don't just sweep it under the carpet and wait until your turn for pregnancy comes. Ask the questions. There's so much information out there. There are places where you could find doctors and nurses and midwives willing to answer your questions. I would say get in touch, begin to, as Shinova was saying as well, have that conversation more
active and alive, so that we don't have to be talking about these sort of things over and over, especially as you mentioned in the Black community. It is really, we have to get away from this secret and not saying certain things. And if you feel a certain how, not being willing to talk too much because you don't want to be a burden to anybody, so let's talk about it. And that's it really. Thank you so much for listening. I pray that you got something even from our little conversation. And if there are any questions you have for any one of us, please feel free to drop us a line. We look forward to speaking to you all again soon. God bless and bye.
Bye.